Good day to you all, it is I, Big King Badger, back again with another list of my top games. This time we are looking at my favourite PS1 games from the letters A right down to M. These ones are from my own collection, so please bear in mind that these aren't the best games ever, but ones that I own that I think people should love a little bit more than they already do. So the first one I've got on my list is The Adventures of Alundra. This game is absolutely amazing. It is the spiritual sequel to Landstalker for the Mega Drive, so don't worry, you don't need to have played it. But the main thing you need to know about this is that it is probably the greatest 2D Zelda game never to have been called Zelda. That is essentially the game in a nutshell. So you've got your top-down kind of view, just like classic 16-bit old-school Zelda. You go through with an almost elf-like characters with his little elf ears, and you are shipwrecked on an island, so similar to the Zelda game for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. With this one, what's really, really cool is, just like in Zelda, you go through the overworld, getting equipment and things like that. And yes, there are dungeons in the game, but the key thing is that in the game, you are a dream walker. And what that means is that you can go into other people's dreams. So similar to Psychonauts that I talked about, where you go into people's psyches and their minds, in this, the dungeons are people's nightmares. And you have to go in, defeat the nightmares to rid the person of whatever troubles them. Absolutely phenomenal game. So if you do like Zelda, pick it up. If you don't like Zelda, please give it a bash, that's what I would say. So, Adventures of Alundra, phenomenal game. The next one I've got on my list is Colony Wars. Now, this game is a space opera. I don't want to say it's an arcadey space shooter, because it can get quite tricky at times. It can be quite tough, but it is an absolutely phenomenal game I love. So, in this one, you play as a little spaceship, or a pilot from the outer colonies of Earth, and you essentially rebel against Earth government, and you are fighting back from your little standpoint in the colonies, fighting your way through to the to Earth, essentially, to fight for independence. The key thing that makes this one unique as well is that it comes over 2 discs, so it is quite an immersive game, simply because the world itself, and the universe, should I say, is expansive, well detailed and things like that. But the absolutely cool thing is there are a lot of different endings to this game. So depending on how you do in a level dictates what mission you do next. So if you're fighting to attack a destroyer, say, and you destroy it, well, great, you go through to this path. And if you don't defeat it, well, you go down this path. So there are quite a lot of different endings you can get. So you can succeed in a mission, but fail some of the side missions, which then can affect the missions that you do later on in the game. There are 2 other games in this series, but for me, the original Colony Wars is probably the best one, so please pick that one up. Absolutely amazing. Now, one that is so cute and so dear to my heart that I absolutely love is Klonoa. So, Klonoa by Namco is, if you can see him there, he is essentially almost like a rabbit cat thing who discovers a big ring. And in that big ring, he has a cute little friend inside it, and you go on a journey. The journey itself is a 2D platforming type game, but with 3D character models and things like that. So the magic ring itself lets you inflate and grab enemies, which then lets you either bounce on them, throw them out as projectiles and things like that. But it is a really, really well polished platforming game, and I cannot stress to recommend that one enough. It is absolutely phenomenal and amazing. There is a remake for it on the Wii, as well as a sequel for the PS2, and some other games that are out there, some other spin-offs for Game Boy Advance, and there is even a volleyball game out there for the PS1, because when I think Klonoa, I think volleyball. But hey, who am I to judge? Klonoa is a pretty cool game anyway. The next one I've got on my list, which is so dear to my heart, is the original Armored Core. So I have discussed Armored Core Nexus for the PS2, but this is where the series starts. So this is a super tough, really realistic, mech-based action game. As I've said before, if you've not seen that video, please check it out. But essentially with Armored Core, you are a mercenary who is tasked with accepting and taking on missions to then earn money, to then create, upgrade and maintain a mech that you have. So in the game you can choose different shoulder weapons. You can have up to 2 of those. You can have a weapon in your hand as well as a blade in your other hand. You have to then look to upkeep and maintain your mech, or your armored core as it's called in the game, by any expended ammunition, or if you're damaged in the game in the levels, you have to pay out for that. And then you can look to buy things such as boosters, radar systems, lock-on devices for missiles and things like that, and targeting systems. So it's quite in-depth, and then everything has a weight and energy output, input and things like that, and you have to manage your weight. So do you want to have a speedy mech, or do you want to be slow and heavy? How much energy does that take? It's really cool. So don't get too burdened down and think, oh gosh, you know what, I can't be out doing all that. But you know what, it really works in the game, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Now, what makes me really salty and a little bit bitter is the Armored Core games are from, or by, From Software, the guys who make Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and for me personally, I would have absolutely loved this to have been picked up, to then be made into, you know, a more fully fledged and more loved series. But you know what, my love for it is just enough, but I would definitely recommend picking this up. The games themselves, as they progress, become more and more arcadey as things go on. But if you want almost, I'm not going to say that it is Dark Souls but with mechs, but if you want a really tough, unforgiving game where you need to be careful and know exactly what you're doing, just like Dark Souls, pick it up. The last one on my list is a really cool one. So, for those who weren't around in the 90s, I'm just going to stress that anime was not as widespread, as easy to get hold of as it is today. It was certainly a lot more expensive, and everything came on videotapes. So you can imagine things were pretty tough and pretty expensive without the internet. So why do I say that? It's simply because Ghost in the Shell for PS1 was my entry, pretty much my main entry into manga, anime and things like that. The game is based on the I would say more the manga for Ghost in the Shell. You don't need to have read it, or you don't need to have watched the anime adaptation. Essentially in the game, there are the characters from the series, if you're familiar with that, voiced by the original actors, and also with anime cutscenes animated from the guys that did the film. But essentially it is a third-person action game. Pretty arcadey. But the cool thing is as well, if you can see here, you have you're inside a red mech, so mech must be the theme from Armored Core. But the cool thing is with this mech is that you can boost and slide around and things like that. But as it's on 4 legs, you can actually crawl up the ceilings and up over onto roofs and things like that. So it is a third-person action game, but the the 3D, sorry, is very much key in this, so you can boost and avoid things and go up walls and things like that, which adds a different element to the game, because you can sneak in above people, drop down and then go to hell and then shoot them and things like that. So it's a really cool one, and I would recommend and really stress that you pick that up and at least have a look at it. It is really good, really cool. So tell me what you think of my top 5 there for the letters A to M. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think should have been on there? Have you played any yourself? What did you think to them? Did you like them? Please, for heaven's sakes, let me know, and we'll have a chat down in the comments below. I would absolutely love to talk to you guys about what you think to all these games. So thank you very much for watching. It is I, Big King Badger, saying happy playing, guys. Thank you very much. I'll see you next.